What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Snowcast Sports Talk, episode 11. Guys, huge announcement. Couple episodes ago, I made the comment that I wanted a co-host. Well, big news. We got one, guys. It is my friend Josh. Josh, welcome to the Snowcast. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Doing awesome.
Hell yeah, dude. I really am excited to have a co-host for this podcast. I'm going to be honest with everyone. I was getting a little burnt out doing it by myself. So for anyone who enjoys the podcast, Josh is coming in and saving the day here. Josh, I wanted to give you a sec to introduce yourself because you kind of have an interesting story on like joining the podcast. So I'll just kind of let you elaborate.
Sure. Well, I've always kind of been into football since I was much younger. I used to watch the Houston Texans. That was actually the team that I followed when I was younger. I lived near Houston when I was growing up. Then that was in childhood when I had somebody to enjoy it with and watch it with and have a party around the game and enjoy it together. But then I moved away and I moved up to Maine and went to college, and then I lost all identity with sports in terms of what team I was rooting for. Like, I was in Maine for many years, actually hanging out with Will some of that time, and I didn't really follow sports, and I don't even know who the players are anymore. But me and Will became really good friends, and he's doing this Giants podcast, and I'm gonna be straight up honest. I'm not an expert, and I don't know all the details. So Will is a lot more knowledgeable about this stuff, but I certainly love to ask questions and dig his brain, and try to better understand the Giants in their identity and how they're doing. So I'm gonna be somewhat of a sounding board for Will, I think, and I'll also just be, here rooting for the Giants and, just having a good time and having good conversations. So
I freaking love
that's,
it. Yeah. Yeah. Me and
yeah.
Nightwin, we met in college. We actually lived together for a few months in college as well. And me and him, we actually streamed together back when we were doing Elder Scrolls Online stuff. And then when the podcast started, yeah, he was a supporter and he reached out and said he was interested. And the thing I kind of like is having Nightwin here is like a great bridge to the people who have been in my community now for years, but maybe aren't as familiar with the Giants. Nightwin can kind of be that representation for those people asking those questions that aren't dumb questions, but it's like that fine line of what works football wise and then like what works like knowledge wise that we need to explain a little bit more. So I'm just super excited to have you here. If I refer to him as Nightwind, that was his gamer tag. He might refer to me as Riku at some points, but it's Will and Josh. Yeah. We are breaking the mold. We are now calling each other by our first names. But Josh, I'm super happy to have you here. And guys, one of the things we're going to do now, having a co-host, is the guests are going to kind of dial back a little bit, and me and Josh are going to really work on our rapport with each other, really making sure we understand how we want to do this podcast. And we actually have the timing's perfect because it's a really quiet, dead time for the Giants and football in general. So me and him can work on that as well. So whatever feedback you guys have for either of us, we're very open. We're always working to try to be better. And like I said, I'm just really excited to have him here. And then the final thing is, with having him here each week, we don't have to go through 4 or 5 topics. We can do just 1 or 2 and really focus and pinpoint on them. So really, all we're going to really be talking about in today's episode is the draft. The draft is officially 12 days away, guys, and the Giants have 2 of the top 10 picks in the NFL draft this year. And as we've figured out, this is one of the most, if not the most important draft for the New York Giants in the past 10 years. We're a team that's strapped for cap space with the new regime, and we need to get these picks right. So I think we're going to start off by talking about our best case scenario for the Giants. Nightwin, if you want to go first on the research you've done, what's your best scenario for the Giants for the draft?
Yeah, I did some research on it, and I looked at all of the different opinions that professional sportscasters had, and I kind of looked at all the different varying opinions, and I looked at the draft players myself, and it seemed to me that ideally it would be great to get Evan Neal, which is an amazing beast of a player, and Sauce Gardner. I think those 2 players would be. The cornerback, Sauce Gardner, has never allowed a touchdown. in his
ever.
college career. Isn't that crazy? I was like, wow,
And
that's amazing.
the other thing too about Sauce we need to remember is cornerback is going to become a position of need for us because we're going to probably lose James Bradbury. So for Josh and for everyone else, when Joe Shane, our general manager, was hired, we had to create some cap space. We didn't have enough money. So rookies cost anywhere from $12 to $20 million. So like when you do the draft, you have to pay those guys. So you need to have $20 million in free cap space. So James Bradbury right now eats up $12 million dollars in our cap space. And we've been looking to trade him. There's been all these rumors. So once we lose him, and James Bradbury is a very good veteran cornerback. Cornerback's going to become a very important position for the Giants. So Sauce Gardner would be a great pickup at 7. Keep going, Nightwin.
Yeah, and one of the
Nightwin
things
Josh.
no, yeah, whatever you want to call me, it's fine. But I saw that Evan Neal is 6'8", 335 pounds approximately.
Beast.
Dude, like nobody gets past this guy, and he very rarely he's a tackle, by the way.
Yep.
And he very rarely has too many issues. But I have looked at what basically scouting coaches have seen, and they've seen that one of the issues that he has is that his weight gets over his toes too often, and he ends up. So what I mean by that is he ends up falling a lot of the time if he loses his balance. So his balance isn't great. So he's very strong. A great player, very strong and physical player. You can't really outmuscle him, but his balance isn't great. So
yeah,
but
you
I
can
think
use
that's
his weight
teachable.
against him. Yeah, you can use his weight against him. And that's the thing too. It's great to do research on what are his flaws and how have other pros with those same flaws reacted, because there are teachable and unteachable things in the NFL. I am no expert on offensive linemen, but yeah, that can absolutely make sense for Neal. He's just such a big guy. But the two offensive linemen, the two tackles that I love are Evan Neal and Eki Ekwonu. Those are the two guys. And when you look at a lot of these boards, Neal is taken early. For a while, he was actually the projected number 1 pick to the Jaguars. Everyone thought Evan Neal to the Jaguars is the number 1 pick. It doesn't matter. But with what the Jaguars have done this offseason with their offensive line, it leaves speculation now that maybe they'll go with Aiden Hutchinson. Then you have the Lions, who took Penny Sewell last year. Mm-hmm. So their offensive line is actually sneaky underrated. You have the Texans, Josh's old team. They have a defensive-minded head coach, so a defensive player makes more sense. And then the only thing about Sauce Gardner is I'm putting my reputation on the line here. I think he will be taken 4th overall by the New York Jets. The Jets are in a division where the wide receivers are getting better and better, and I don't think he'll be on the board when the Giants get a chance to choose.
Oh, okay. So you think they might take the cornerback?
Yeah. So Tyreek Hill went to the Dolphins, and so to explain this a little bit more. So teams are in divisions. So there's two. I guess I'm going to say 2 divisions: the NFC and the AFC. And then there's 6
conferences.
Yeah, conferences. Yes. See, this is why we have Josh here to be the co-host. And then we have the divisions.
And then divisions are the smaller, the 4-team groupings.
Yep. And so no matter what the schedule is, teams in the same division play each other twice a year, once at home, once in away. So for the Giants, we'll always play the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Cowboys, each of them twice, once at home, once away. The reason I'm making this point is the Dolphins and the Patriots and the Bills have all got stud wide receivers, and the Jets have to play 6 games against all of them collectively. They need an all-star cornerback to slow those wide receivers down. So I just can't see Sauce, and the Jets have a defensive-minded head coach. So if Sauce Gardner falls to 7 and we get him, that would be an absolute steal.
That absolutely would. But just going back to Evan Neal one more time, I just wanted to say
he's my favorite player in the draft.
There's a few career highlights that I've researched, and in the 2020 playoffs, in the playoffs, he allowed 1 pressure in the entire playoffs of 2020. 1.
Alabama tackles, dude. So another thing, I'm going to go on tangents because you're making great points. So college,
go ahead.
the thing about draft picks, and one of the things I think that people need to take into more consideration is what team are they coming from? So we talked a little bit about Charles Cross, and you said to me, you said, hey, he's like the third best tackle. What's his deal? I believe he went to Mississippi State. Mississippi State isn't as in competitive a division or a league as Alabama or North Carolina, which is where I think Ecky's from. And the other thing, too, is the style of offenses these guys play. So when you're in a league that's much more minor league, the offense can get away with a lot more things. So a lot of people say Charles Cross isn't ready for the NFL because it's a different type of game, different type of blocking. He was in a team where all they did was throw the ball all day. And so they're like, well, he can't run block. He doesn't know. And in the NFL, the run game is much more important. But with an Evan Neal going to Alabama, Alabama is one of the top echelon, creme de la creme schools. So Evan Neal is pro ready. A lot of people say that. That's why people love him. But keep going.
Yeah, I noticed that because I was actually mentioning, because I saw Charles Cross, and because I was looking at some of the leaderboards on PFF.com, and I was like, it looked like looking at the ranks of what their opinion on, because again, I'm not an expert at this, so I was looking at the ranking of like who do they think is some of the best people in the draft, and Charles Cross was sitting at number 5, but I haven't heard his name once. It's like I haven't heard this guy. I've been reading a lot about this stuff. And I do see that, though, one of the cons is that, he's inexperienced in pro-style run blocking concepts. So all base zone blocks. So I guess his blocking style that they did in Mississippi, I guess, is not at the pro level, like you were saying. So
it's tough.
Maybe that, yeah.
It's tough. But, the thing is, and the argument I make for Charles Cross, just very quickly, because a lot of Giants fans don't like him. A lot of Giants fans are not fans of Charles Cross. Me personally, Josh, I like him.
Personally?
Yeah.
Like, don't like him personally?
No, as a prospect.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they don't think they basically think there's a very big gap between Charles Cross and like an Evan Neal. Like that gap is bigger than people, because you have to think we're picking at 5 and 7. The value of Charles Cross at like pick number 5 isn't there. Like there's better players on the board. And it kind of, it brings up that debate, which I talk about all the time, which is like positional need or best player available, BPA. Like, what's the way to do it? Now, I've been swayed on this because I've always talked about positional need. But talking with Kid Blue, talking with Justin Pennick, talking with a lot of these other Giants content creators, they tell me, and I kind of agree now, there's so many holes on the Giants, you just take the best player available. And Charles Cross will not be the best player available at 5 or 7. He won't be. There's better guys on the defense. Crazy? Go ahead.
And you know what's crazy is that there's all, including Charles Cross, there's like 3 tackles that are like really high up there, like Eke Ekwonu and Evan Neal. I feel like, I can't guarantee it, but it seems to me that we're going to come away with one of them, either Eke Ekwonu or Evan Neal.
Oh man, if we do, I will be so excited. I'll say it again very quickly. I can't see the Jaguars taking an offensive lineman because they re-signed one of their stud guys and brought in someone else. Lions took an offensive line last year. The Texans are a defensive team with I forget their coach. I forget his name, but they're a defensive team. The Texans are the biggest threat to Evan Neal. If Evan Neal goes, it'll be at 3. That is where he'll go.
This makes a weird... I don't know if this is a thing or not.
It's
probably a stretch, but I'm just going to ask you anyway. Do teams ever draft players so that other teams don't get them?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, this guy would be really good on the Giants. Let's draft him so the Giants don't get him. Like, I feel like that's not how it works, because why wouldn't they just pick somebody that they actually need rather than in spite?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it happens in spite, but it definitely, like for example, last year there was a wide receiver. His name was Devontae Smith, and he was slated to go to the Giants at number 11 in every mock. Like every mock had Devontae going to the Giants, and the Eagles traded with the Cowboys to get 1 pick ahead of us, and they got him, and then we traded back. So I mean, I think the Eagles wanted him, but I think the Eagles knew we were going to take him. So teams don't do it, but what teams will do is they'll trade up. So, like, some of the quarterbacks, like the Panthers at number 6 could take a quarterback. So, like the Steelers, the Seahawks, these quarterback-needy teams could actually trade with the Giants. So, to get in front of them. So people only do it to get in front of. Not really in spite of, just not to miss out on a guy.
Let's just look at I'm gonna just say like 5 names, right? Because remember, we're drafting at number 5, so that means there's only gonna be 4 players gone, only 4 before we get our pick. Aiden Hutchinson, Kyle Hamilton, Derek Stingley Jr., Kayvon Thibodeau, Eke Ekwonu, Evan Neal. Like that's like 5 or 6 people I just mentioned.
Yeah, 7.
We're getting one of those.
Yep.
Right? We're getting one of those.
Getting me excited. I love it. Yeah, this draft is This draft is super deep on big players. So big defensive edges and big offensive linemen, which is awesome. Which is like what makes me super excited because the Giants, so this is a great transition into what I think the dream scenario is for the Giants is I agree with you 100%, Josh. Evan Neal is my absolute favorite player in this draft. I'm going to get loud and excited about it because Josh can't see me on camera, but you viewers can. But Evan Neal is a freaking stud. He goes to an all-pro school. He let up 1 QB pressure in the playoffs at his school, and he's a giant. And we'd be putting him at right tackle, not even left tackle. Andrew Thomas, my guy, is holding down the left side. If we got Evan Neal, I would be so excited. But at 7, if this is the best case scenario, my man Kayvon Thibodeau falls to number 7. He is an edge rusher from Oregon State, and he has been slated to be the number 1 pick. But a lot of people don't like his attitude, and they don't like his motor. What motor is how long do they play as hard as they can. So Evan Neal, in some of his later games in his season, would stop pushing as hard, stop playing as hard. And I'm like, this is my opinion, college players don't get paid. If you're out of playoff contention, why would you put your body on the line when you're not going to make $1? And if you get hurt, you're going to lose out on all this money in the NFL on your rookie contract. He made a business decision. He decided, hey, I'm not going to put my body on the line when there's nothing at stake and I can't make any money. I'm going to wait till I go into the NFL. And then other people say he cares about his brand. That's fine. As long as the guy gets sacks and QB pressures and is a beast, you can do anything you want with your brand. Are these players not allowed to be businessmen on the side? They only can play in the NFL for 10 years, 15 years, and then they're done. But if Kayvon Thibodeau fell to number 7, which I don't think it's likely. I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of people think he's going to, and the Giants are going to take him. I don't know. I can't see it. But if we got Evan Neal in 5 and Kayvon Thibodeau at 7, this team would be 50% better than it was before. 50% better.
You said 10 or 15 years. I said, tell that to Tom Brady.
Well, hey, the quarterback position can play longer because there's so many rules in place for him not to get hurt.
That's a good point, actually.
Because the NFL looks at it like a business. They say, if we lose all of our quarterbacks to injury, why is anyone going to watch? All right, let's put a bunch of rules in place where you can't hit the quarterback. So
that's a really good point.
So a quarterback can play for 20. But like a defensive end, probably 10 or 15. More likely 10. Defensive ends, every play their body is being fully used.
Especially like linemen. Every single play, they're slamming against another 300-pound dude.
So, no, my best case scenario is Thibodeau at 7 and Neal at 5. Now, the truth is, Neal and Thibodeau could both go before 5. They could. The Texans could take Neal, and the Lions or the Jaguars or the Jets could take Tibbs. It can happen. Go ahead.
If we don't get Evan, I'd be happy with Eke Ekwonu.
Eke's a beast, dude.
I would be happy with that. I would not be upset. Either one of those two guys, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think either of those guys. And what we're going to do, I just want to make a note, is not during this podcast, because I just want to leave this podcast as is discussing. There will be videos on the YouTube channel, guys, where me and Josh are looking at film of these guys as well. and doing our reactions to it. So be sure to look out for those. Right now, we're not going to switch over to the film because there's too many guys to look at. But yeah, Eki Ekwonu, the thing about Eki that I love so much is this is a mean guy. When you watch him play, every play, he is playing like he's trying to kill someone. And I love that in an offensive lineman. I love that ferocity. That's one of the problems with Matt Parrott, the guy we have right now on our offensive line. He just doesn't play with any fire. You want a guy who just is like going out for blood.
Gotcha, yeah.
So
not having the fire ain't good at all.
No, and the thing is, though, Eki is actually graded higher than Evan Neal in some aspects, and we could see Eki off the board before Neal. It's very possible. Very possible.
So I'm curious, what are your top 2 positions of need for the Giants? Would it be like the O-line would be number 1?
Yep.
Or like, what do you think? What would be positions?
Yeah, so there's 3, and that's what's so tough. I wish we had 3 openings. There's actually... the truth is, the only position of need I think we have is offensive line. That's the one where we need to address it. There is no option not to. At 7, we can address cornerback, like you discussed. We can address edge, like I want. Or we can address safety. There's a guy named Kyle Hamilton who's more talented, or is probably the most talented player in the draft. And we have a hole at safety. We need another safety. So if we could get a Kyle Hamilton, that would be amazing at 7. But the first thing we need to do is at number 5 is address the offensive line. The only reason I would say no is, let's say we get in a scenario where Neal and Ekwonu are off the board before 5, then we take best player available. We take someone on the defense, and then maybe Cross is at 7. Cross at 5 isn't worth the pick. There's going to be better players there. Because if Evan Neal and Ekwonu are off the board, then Kayvon Thibodeau's there. Sauce Gardner's probably there. Kyle Hamilton's probably there. Those are 3 defensive players that are better than Charles Cross. So there's too many holes to like have 2 positions of need. The only position that's more important than all the other holes is the offensive line. Because we need to see what Daniel Jones can do, and we need to see what Saquon can do. We need offensive linemen. I'll die on that hill.
No, I agree, but I feel like there's something we need to figure out with that, though, because it seems to me that the positions that we do need offensive linemen, but it seems like it's the actual guard positions that need the most help.
Really? No.
More than the
no. So the guard was we talked about this before we started recording. Glowinski. We signed him, and he's a guard, so he's a better guard than we've had. And we signed a center in Feliciano, who also can play guard. So we actually can switch out guards. Right tackle is our biggest hole. So Andrew Thomas is on left tackle, right tackle. So you'll see Parrott, and I think that's probably it, is Matt Parrott.
Yeah, Matt Parrott. Yeah.
He's not good.
Yeah.
He is not a good right tackle. No.
Good.
He was drafted by Dave Gettleman, and he's a bust. When you look at the PFF ratings, he might look better than he comes off, but it's not true. Right tackle is where we absolutely need to definitely hit.
Okay, so we don't really need to look for a guard then in the draft. Even in like round 3 or round 4.
So we do. I still think we need one more, and there's some really good guys. There's a guy named Zion Johnson. He goes to Boston College. He'd be a great pick in the 2nd round. He'd be a great pick. He'd be a steal in the 3rd round.
Our next one is pick 36 overall, pick 4 in the 2nd round. And I've pulled up a few guards that are already, available, like Zion Johnson and Kenyon Green.
Yep, those 2 guys would be great, Josh. If we could get either of them, like if we could get Evan Neal at 5, and then just for your scenario, Sauce Gardner at 7, and then one of those 2 linemen with pick 36, that would be absolutely amazing. Our offensive line would be so much better, and we'd have an all-star cornerback on the other side of Adoree Jackson on our defense. So it'd be awesome.
I feel like since I'm new in this, I'm coming up with schemes and plans, and I don't know if they make any sense.
Go ahead.
So I'm just going to come up with a plan or a scheme, and then you tell me if this never happens. So what I was thinking is it, could you, like, say, for example, you really, really need a guard, but you don't have a guard. Like, there's no really good top-tier guards in the draft, right? So you just pick a very high level player, and now you have that really high level player. You can then trade that high level player for a really good guard on another team that's not in the draft.
So
Somebody that's
yep.
already
So
existed.
so
Does that happen?
you win an extra step, but the Giants could do this. You don't draft the player. You just trade the pick. So like, let's say for example, at number 5, let's say we get to 5, and the first 4 picks were Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Eki Ekwonu, and Sauce Gardner. Those are the 4 players that would fit best for. Let's say they're all gone at 5. The best move for the Giants would be at 5 or 7 to trade back. So let's say the Steelers, they're at pick 20. The Steelers would say, hey, we'll give you pick 20 and our first round pick next year and a third round pick if we can get your 5th pick. So then we get to move back to 20. We get draft capital for next year, which is a very important draft for us. And then we can take Kenyon Green or Zion Johnson at a pick where his value makes sense. You don't want to draft a player above their value. Zion Johnson, Linderbaum, who's a center on the offensive line, and then Green. None of those guys are worth the 5th or 7th pick. If those are the best linemen we have to choose from, then we trade back. Because someone will want to trade up for something.
Oh, okay. It sounds sort of bad in the moment. It's like giving up your badass pick. But
Josh, the only reason we have the 7th pick this year is because we did it last year. We had pick 11, and we traded with the Bears to pick 20. And so we got the Bears' first round pick this year. The 5th pick is because of the Giants. Pick 7 is because of the Bears. That is their pick that we get because last year we traded back. So it pays dividends. Yeah, exactly. And the final piece is if Daniel Jones isn't the guy, we need to get a quarterback next year. So we need to trade back again to get another first-round pick because we might have to move up and give 2 first-round picks to get higher to get the quarterback we need. So there's a lot of rumors going around that Joe Schoen wants to trade out of one of his top 2 picks, 5 or 7, and get a first-round pick for next year.
Do you think it's at all possible? I mean, because what if the Giants do something totally unexpected? What if they don't go for the people we've been talking about, but they do something totally weird, that we did not expect? Like go for like a quarterback like Sam Howell or Malik Willis. Do you think that's possible at all?
Yeah, that's absolutely possible.
You think so?
So it's tough. Giants fans, and I'm just in the same boat here. I'm really in the same boat. We don't need a quarterback. This team is so broken. Very rarely do teams get 2 top 10 picks where we can get cornerstone pieces on our offense and defense. Let's say we take Malik Willis. He would be awful on this team because he's an unproven, untapped potential guy, and he'd be being put on a shit team. He'd have no protection on the offensive line. The defense would never give him any time to take a breather. Like, he would fail, just like Daniel Jones did. Now, if Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll believe one of these guys is a franchise quarterback and is going to get us to a Super Bowl, then they'll take him. And if they do, I'll follow them, but I will be very critical of it, and I'll hope they're right and I'm wrong, but I would bet a lot of money that quarterback won't pan out because you need a team in place to be able to create success. You need a team in place. Like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, trying to think of some other younger stud quarterbacks, Justin Herbert. These teams had players around the quarterback to help them. So, but could the Giants absolutely take a quarterback at 5? Absolutely. They had him come in for interviews. So
I see. Yeah, because that's another little bit of news is that the Giants have been, a bunch of people have been visiting from, obviously prospects from the draft have been visiting the Giants recently, as they are doing with many teams. I don't exactly know why they do that, but they do.
I'll tell you why. Because they want every other team not to know who they like. You don't want anyone to know who your player is. So the Giants will bring in every goddamn player they can, so that no one knows what player they actually like. Because if someone knows what player you like, then people know to trade over you or not trade over you, and then it doesn't create any value. Like someone might want the Jets' 4th pick because they think the Giants are going to take their quarterback at number 5. So you bet your bottom dollar the Giants are going to bring in Sam Howell, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis. They're going to interview them all, even if they have no interest in them. They don't care.
I see. So it's like an interview.
Exactly, and it's like a game of poker. You don't want anyone to know what's in your hand.
because I was thinking at first, why don't they just not have any player visit any team?
Yeah,
Why do they have to visit?
I think the reason is, there's two things people try to build in football. They try to build obviously a good team physically, but also a good culture. And some players don't fit what people are going for. A Kayvon Thibodeau might not fit a culture where, it's not about the name, it's about the logo. It's not about the name on the back of your jersey, it's about the logo you're playing for. So
Mm.
and you hear all these rumors, and the coaches and the GMs go, screw this, we want to get this guy in ourselves. And the other thing they do, Josh, is they bring players in and they show them a college play that they were in and tell them, explain to me this play. They want to see what their football IQ is. Can Evan Neal explain the play?
Probably not.
No, they absolutely
Just
can.
kidding. No, I'm kidding.
You'd be shocked how smart these guys are. But it's a big thing. Is football IQ? It's very important. So, it's tough. I wanna round us back around just quickly. I want to talk about some of our worst case scenarios, because there are some. Being at 5, there's a lot of volatility in what's going to be who's going to be picking who. It could be very, very, very likely that Aiden Hutchinson goes number 1, Kayvon Thibodeau goes number 2, Evan Neal goes number 3, and Eki Ekwonu goes number 4. That is absolutely a possibility. And what's the worst case scenario there? The Giants draft a Devin Walker. Devin Walker is an edge, just like Kayvon Thibodeau. He only had 6 sacks in college, but he destroyed the combine where they did all the tests on him. And a lot of people are like, some people think he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. A lot of untapped potential, but...
Trayvon Walker?
Yeah, Trayvon Walker, not Cave. What did I say, Devin?
Yeah,
Trayvon Walker. Yes.
Gotcha.
And then we could draft like a wide receiver at number 7, like a Garrett Wilson or a Chris Olave. That would be horrible. I don't think we need wide receivers. I think we have enough wide receivers. I think we need offensive linemen and defensive pieces. So there's some bad scenarios here too. And the truth is, Josh, I don't think you take a Devin Walker or a Charles Cross at 5. I think you trade back. You trade back to number 9 with the Seahawks, or you trade back to 20 with the Steelers. And then
get like a good first round pick next
for the next year, and then maybe like
and then we would have 2 next year.
Exactly.
Whatever our standard pick would be,
and then whatever they finish.
Yeah.
So when we got the Bears pick, we wanted the Bears to lose every game, because every game the Bears lost was a better draft pick for us. Because that's how the draft is determined. The worse you are, the better draft pick you get. So like the Jaguars were the worst team, then the Lions, then the Texans, then the Jets and the Giants. And then the Bears were the 7th worst team. So like let's say the Bears won the Super Bowl, we would have had the 5th and the 32nd pick.
Oh wow! So the very best team with the best record, or that goes the farthest, gets the worst.
Yeah.
To balance things out, so that
exactly.
the teams in need get the first pick. Yeah.
Yep.
That
exactly.
makes sense.
So yeah, I mean the draft, it's gonna be crazy. Now, let's talk a little bit about most realistic. I think 5, we're getting Neal or Ekwonu. I think that's very realistic with all the defensive coaches. And then at 7, I don't think Sauce or Thibodeau are going to be there. I think at 7, we're going to get Jermaine Johnson or trade back. Jermaine Johnson is another edge, and I think he had the most sacks in college last year. He's an absolute beast. We will do a video where we watch film on Jermaine Johnson.
I'm looking forward to that. The video is going to be fun.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast. So, definitely someone worth watching.
Yeah, and there's a new whole regime going on now with the new coach and with the whole new, and I wonder how that's going to play into their picks, or if it will influence their picks.
It probably will. It probably will, because you can get guys with untapped potential. There's guys, they're called projects. They aren't really that great yet, like a Trayvon Walker, but there's so much potential. And the Giants aren't going to be super competitive this year. They're a rebuilding team, so it doesn't hurt to take players that are also need some building. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the worst case scenario, and take this with a grain of salt, me being amateur at this,
Go ahead.
the worst case scenario I think would be if the Giants tried to take a chance on a player that's not technically up at the very top. like they just think that a certain player will fill out a certain role that they need, but it ends up not really working out, and it's not one of the top tier players, that are at the top 5 or the top 10. And they pick someone lower ranked,
Yeah, like a cross at 5 might not be the best choice.
Yeah. Like if they try to
Or
take a chance
Trayvon.
on a player,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it doesn't really work out, it would be like a waste of a pick,
Yeah, absolutely. I think if your guys are gone, trade back. And I think that's where the Giants are too. I think the Giants are definitely thinking about the future, and they definitely want to trade back. But we'll see. It's going to be one of those things where it's going to be a ton of fun to see what the Giants do. Dave Gettleman in the past has definitely been like very sporadic about his picks, so he picked Saquon, which was best player available, and then he picked Daniel Jones, which was positional need, and neither of them worked out. And then he picked Andrew Thomas, who was his best pick by far in the first round. He's our left tackle. And then Kadarius Toney.
Well, the head coach, Brian Dable, he said in his interview, he said, I was going to say verbatim, I don't remember exactly, but he said he's basically going to pick the best player available.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think
in that interview.
Yeah, because the Giants, they're definitely... So first thing is you don't want anyone to like kind of figure out who you're going to take. So you're not going to go up and say, oh, I'm taking offensive lineman. And also, best player available is also very subjective. Like, Dave Gettleman thought Daniel Jones was the best player available at number 6 in 2019, and that was not true. But,
okay.
So best player available, it's an easy thing for a coach or a GM to say, because they can just say, we're going to take the best player available. And then what they'll say after they pick the guy who clearly wasn't was, well, he was the top guy on our board. Well, who the hell made your board? But
okay, that's a good point. Yeah.
But the other point too is the Giants have so many holes that it's true. Just take the best guy. Like if, let's say again, Neal, Aquanu, Thibodeau, and Sauce are all gone in the top 4. Take Kyle Hamilton. He's a safety. He's an absolute stud. We will watch the film on him. He's an absolute stud. So,
you know what I just thought? Do kickers? When do they draft kickers? Like
usually like 5th, 6th, or 7th, but I think the Raiders one time actually drafted a punter in the first round. The Raiders,
wow.
Fun fact, just for anyone who's a football fan, the Raiders have had the most wild draft picks for years, decades. Like a Raiders first round pick is like an anomaly. You just don't even know what they're going to do. But yeah, the draft's going to be super, super interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. I think we can honestly wrap this up here. I don't know, Josh, I don't know if you have any final thoughts.
I think I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say.
Hell yeah. I think for me, it's just, offensive line's the first choice, but if our guys are gone, trade down and then just BPA. I know in the past I've said I'm not a best player available guy, but I've kind of talked myself into it, and with some of the discussions we've had here and also discussions I've had with other content creators, it's definitely not a bad choice for the Giants and where we currently are. So we'll see. But either way, shorter episode today. We'll definitely have more stories, guys, next weekend as we get closer to the draft. And then, good God, when the draft comes, we will have a lot to discuss. Josh, thanks so much for being here. He'll be here next week, guys, when we go through it again. And be sure to look on the YouTube channel. We will be doing film reviews on 5 of the college prospects that we are looking forward to hopefully getting on the Giants. So have a good one, everyone. Peace out.